The modern economy incentivizes the public performance of success, yet every visible financial marker serves as an open invitation for external social pressure to compromise your long-term strategy. True fiscal independence is found not in the display of assets, but in the clinical execution of privacy and automation that eliminates decision fatigue. The following 13 moves outline a data-driven framework for building wealth in silence, shifting your capital from a public resource into a private engine of absolute optionality. The digital age has transformed the quiet accumulation of capital into a loud, performative theater where every milestone demands an audience. We are conditioned to broadcast our lives through a lens of curated prosperity, from the glossy curves of a brand new vehicle to the wide-angle tours of a recent real estate acquisition. Even our professional milestones are carefully choreographed. We post career updates that act as a calculated flare, signaling a significant jump in salary while cleverly omitting the specific digits. This culture operates on the fallacy that achievement is invisible unless it is witnessed, suggesting that the value of your labor only crystallizes once it is validated by a like or a comment. However, this visibility is a Trojan horse. By broadcasting your financial status, you inadvertently grant the public a seat at your boardroom table, allowing them to cast votes on decisions that should be yours alone. When you allow the world to estimate your net worth, you trigger a shift in how others perceive their relationship to your resources. Once friends and family believe they have calculated your surplus, they begin to architect their own plans for your money. They decide for you what luxury you can afford, what percentage of a communal bill you should shoulder, and what degree of charity you owe them. This manifests in the uncomfortable friction of cousins soliciting loans, the unspoken expectation that you will always sponsor the group dinner, or relatives who treat your personal emergency fund as a collective insurance policy for the entire extended family. You may find yourself under the microscope of subtle disapproval the moment your spending habits deviate from their mental model of how a wealthy person should behave. This is not the liberation that prosperity promises. It is a gilded cage where social expectation dictates your every move. True affluence is defined by the depth of your silence and the breadth of your autonomy. It is the ability to navigate life without providing a ledger to justify your choices to the peanut gallery. When your balance sheet is a state secret, you remove yourself from the equations others run in their heads, granting you the mental bandwidth to execute your strategy without interference. By refusing to perform for an audience, you reclaim the very sovereignty that money is intended to provide. To achieve this, we must examine 13 specific tactical shifts designed to build a fortress of private capital. The foundational move in this framework is the immediate removal of human agency from the savings process. We often fail to account for the cognitive tax levied by a standard workday. By the time you clock out, your brain has been depleted by a relentless barrage of professional crises, digital notifications, logistical errands, and social interruptions. This state of mental exhaustion makes the prospect of long-term financial discipline feel like a Herculean task. When your executive function is running on empty, the siren song of immediate gratification becomes deafening, which is why manual saving is a statistically losing game. You might intend to transfer funds later, but that intention is easily derailed by an unexpected utility bill, a sudden urge for a retail reward, or simple cognitive drift. The solution is to bypass your own willpower entirely by synchronizing your outflows with your inflows. The moment your compensation is deposited, a portion must vanish before you have the opportunity to acknowledge its existence. This transfer should occur instantly, preceding any discretionary spending and before your mind can allocate those dollars to a new dopamine hit. Consider the efficacy of a person who automates a $50 transfer every Friday into an index fund or a high-yield savings account. This individual does not need to be a market wizard or a master of self-denial. They simply need a system that functions in the background. While others may boast about aggressive saving goals they never actually hit, the silent automator wins through the sheer force of mechanical consistency. There is no internal negotiation, no recurring sense of guilt, and no need for a public announcement. The wealth simply compounds in the shadows while you go about your life. The second strategic shift requires an immediate cessation of all dialogue regarding your personal earnings or total net worth. While this may appear to be common sense, a surprising number of individuals leak sensitive financial data through casual, unintentional remarks. They might highlight a recent salary increase, lament a tax bill in a way that reveals their specific bracket, or brag about stock market wins over a shared meal. Even mentioning the price paid for a primary residence provides onlookers with a data point to triangulate your wealth. By handing out these figures, you provide a blueprint for others to build their own expectations of your life. They start to calculate what you can surely afford, what you should be contributing to collective costs, and why providing them with financial assistance should be effortless for someone in your position. Once these external mental models are constructed, Refusing a request becomes a battle against their perceived logic. It is not that your boundary is invalid, but rather that your audience now believes they possess enough evidence to cross-examine your personal choices. To counter this, you must adopt a stance of intentional vagueness. This is not about being visibly secretive or creating social friction. It is about utilizing calm, unremarkable responses that reveal nothing. Phrases such as mentioning that you are doing fine, stating that things are good, noting that you cannot complain, or explaining that you are simply making it work serve as effective shields. You have no obligation to provide precise accounting to your social circle. Maintaining this curtain of privacy is a defense mechanism against both direct external leverage and the invisible weight of opinions that people inevitably project onto those they perceive as high achievers. The third move involves the total elimination of automotive debt. For the vast majority of families, the recurring car payment represents a massive, overlooked leak in their financial hull. Every dollar committed to that monthly obligation is a dollar stripped away from compound interest, debt liquidation, or capital investment. We must be intellectually honest about the nature of a vehicle. It is a rapidly depreciating transportation cost, not an engine for wealth creation. While a modern car offers comfort, its true price is the destruction of future capital. Consider the divergent paths of two individuals earning identical salaries. The first chooses to drive a reliable, older vehicle that they own outright, incurring zero debt. The second individual enters a lease or financing agreement for a late model car, saddling themselves with a payment of several $100s every month alongside significantly higher insurance premiums. Over a 10-year horizon, the variance in liquid cash flow can easily escalate into tens of thousands of dollars. When that surplus is funneled into a consistent investment strategy, the resulting gap in net worth becomes a chasm. The goal here is not to suggest that quality vehicles are forbidden, but to highlight how much future security is traded away for the sake of a monthly installment. Genuine wealth often wears a humble mask that fails to impress the casual observer. The fourth move is to disconnect entirely from the culture of social media posturing. Every time you broadcast a new purchase, a luxury excursion, or a home renovation, you are doing more than just documenting a memory. You are distributing a dossier of your financial habits. You are showing the world exactly where your capital flows and what triggers your spending. This transparency creates a double-sided trap. Externally, it invites a new tier of social demand. Internally, it creates a psychological anchor, forcing you to maintain a lifestyle that matches the digital avatar you have created. You stop merely owning an object and start serving the identity that the object represents. The most powerful financial pivot you can make is deciding that your bank balance does not require a public relations department. By ensuring your financial milestones remain invisible to the internet, you evaporate the pressure to perform for an audience in your everyday life. The fifth tactical adjustment requires you to occupy a residence that sits significantly below your maximum borrowing capacity. Because housing represents the most volatile expenditure in the average person's economic life, precision in this area is mandatory. A frequent error in judgment occurs when individuals mistake a bank's approval limit for a sustainable spending recommendation. These two figures are entirely unrelated. A credit limit is a measure of risk for the lender, not a long-term architectural plan for your personal wealth. Those who overextend to secure the grandest apartment or house they can technically qualify for essentially anchor themselves to a heavy burden of fixed obligations. This includes the obvious mortgage payments, but it also encompasses property taxes, insurance premiums, utility bills, maintenance requirements, repair costs, and various associated fees. These recurring costs can swallow a staggering percentage of your gross income, leaving your investment accounts malnourished. Conversely, those who purposefully reside in more modest surroundings preserve a high degree of operational flexibility. They maintain liquid capital for market opportunities and create a protective buffer against economic downturns. This is about establishing a financial safety zone. Consider the reality of opportunity cost. Every additional $100 per month that is swallowed by an oversized home is $100 that is barred from compounding in the market. Over a multi-decade horizon, even minor discrepancies in housing overhead can create a massive divergence in your total net value. While this is not an argument to live in a state of absolute deprivation, it is a reminder that the gravity of housing on your financial orbit is far heavier than most people realize. The sixth move is to implement a strategic spending freeze for 12 months following every increase in your compensation. Most professionals remain economically stagnant despite rising salaries because they succumb to lifestyle creep, a process so gradual it often remains invisible until it has already drained the tank. It starts with the feeling that a slightly larger apartment is deserved, or that a more prestigious vehicle is finally reasonable. This is followed by a slow accumulation of premium clothing, frequent travel, and upscale food delivery. While none of these choices feel reckless when viewed as isolated incidents, they collectively act like a sponge that saturates the entirety of your new raise. A more robust approach is to keep your standard of living absolutely flat for one full year after a promotion or raise. By immediately diverting that entire surplus into debt elimination, savings, or investment vehicles, you create a powerful upward step in your economic foundation. This year of disciplined non-expansion allows your capital to give birth to assets before those dollars are converted into permanent, high-fixed expectations. Finally, the seventh move is to ensure your investment philosophy remains intentionally dull and predictable. Compounding success is rarely the product of a thrilling narrative. It is the result of relentless, boring repetition. This involves utilizing broad index funds, retirement accounts, and diversified portfolios fueled by automatic contributions and reinvested dividends. This method lacks social currency, which is precisely why it is effective. It does not invite dinner party debates or the pressure to perform as a market guru. A high-drama investment style is a psychological liability that often leads to impulsive, emotional errors. Chasing the latest trend generates unnecessary friction and cognitive load. In contrast, a quiet investment strategy operates like a background process on a computer, running silently for years without intervention. You do not need a story. You need consistency. The eighth step in refining your financial operations centers on the practice of untraceable philanthropy. One of the most balanced relationships a person can develop with their capital is the ability to facilitate positive change without converting that altruism into a public performance. By choosing to give anonymously, you provide a safeguard for both yourself and the person receiving your help. This approach ensures the objective remains focused entirely on the utility of the aid rather than the maintenance of a social image. Furthermore, it prevents the people around you from recalibrating their assumptions regarding your total wealth or financial capacity. When those you help remain unaware that you were the one who settled an outstanding bill, dispatched a gift card, covered their groceries at the register, or wired a charitable donation, they have no data with which to adjust their internal calculations of what you owe them. This tactical silence allows generosity to remain a consistent part of your character without inviting new, burdensome expectations from your social circle. Quiet giving functions as a sustainable model for communal support because it avoids the social tax that public displays of wealth inevitably incur. Next, you must turn your analytical gaze toward the various recurring services and luxury automated charges that silently erode your capital. Many individuals suffer from a slow financial hemorrhage through fees that appear insignificant when viewed as isolated transactions. This includes the vast ecosystem of streaming platforms, specialized software, premium add-on features, gym or club memberships, cloud storage tiers, delivery service perks, forgotten mobile applications, and various convenience-based subscriptions. While none of these charges appear lethal on a monthly statement, their cumulative effect is a massive, permanent claim on your future earnings. Think of these recurring costs as leeches on your investment engine. Every dollar they consume is a dollar that cannot be deployed to capture compound interest. The correct framework for evaluation is intentionality. These costs must be audited with mechanical regularity. If a specific service does not provide a tangible improvement to your life that is directly proportional to its recurring price tag, it must be terminated immediately. The 10th requirement for establishing a fortress of quiet wealth is the accumulation of a liquid reserve covering no less than 6 months of your total living expenses, coupled with the absolute non-disclosure of this fund. This emergency capital is not merely a mathematical buffer. It is the physical manifestation of psychological stability. It grants you the luxury of time to think strategically when volatility strikes, ensuring that a sudden termination of employment, a medical crisis, or an unforeseen invoice does not force you into a suboptimal financial decision. This is one of the most practical forms of resilience you can cultivate. However, the integrity of this safety net depends on its invisibility. The moment others become aware that you possess this cushion, they may unconsciously perceive it as a pool of available capacity for their own needs. A private safety net that is shared with the public quickly transforms into a public expectation. The primary function of an emergency fund is to insulate your own household from uncertainty. While this does not preclude you from offering assistance, the existence and exact magnitude of your reserve must remain a state secret. Finally, we transition into more advanced territory where the utilization of legal structures becomes a relevant strategic option. The primary move here involves the integration of legal entities like limited liability companies when they provide a measurable advantage in liability or privacy. This is a point that requires more precision than most personal finance advice offers. Such structures are particularly effective tools for separating your professional endeavors from your personal identity and, depending on the specific state and the nature of the assets involved, can serve to disconnect certain properties or businesses from your personal name in public databases. They are designed to create a layer of liability separation when they are properly established and maintained. It is crucial to understand that these entities are not a form of magical invisibility, nor do they automatically generate total anonymity for the owner. Their actual utility is a complex variable that depends on the state of registration, the internal structure of the entity, and the specific context of how it is utilized. Therefore, if your financial life involves the ownership of rental real estate, the operation of a business, or the possession of assets where liability and privacy are primary concerns, discussing these options with a qualified attorney or an accountant is mandatory. These are sophisticated tools, not simple shortcuts. When applied correctly, they provide a valuable buffer between your personal name and your capital assets. Use them with a clear understanding of their mechanics, or you risk adding layers of unnecessary complexity without any tangible defensive gain. A single source of income is a structural vulnerability that most households mistakenly accept as the norm. The 12th move in this sequence is to cultivate auxiliary revenue streams under a total veil of silence. While modern social discourse often treats side hustles as a method for status seeking or personal branding, the true objective is the elimination of fragility. A family anchored to a solitary paycheck exists in a state of constant exposure. However, even a modest influx from secondary sources can fundamentally alter your experience of risk. These streams do not require glamour to be effective. They manifest as consistent dividends, monthly rental income, freelance projects, professional consulting, earned interest, intellectual property royalties, or revenue from a quiet side business. By refusing to turn these earnings into a public brand, you strip away the emotional weight and social pressure attached to your primary career. This is not about being flashy. It is about building a shock absorber for your life that grants you the flexibility to navigate economic volatility without fear. The 13th strategic pivot involves mastering the art of selective transparency. There is a common misconception that protecting your financial life requires absolute, antisocial silence. In reality, the most sophisticated social strategy is to be an open book regarding your principles while keeping your ledger locked in a vault. You can engage others by discussing your broad budgeting methods, your high-level investing philosophy, the financial books that shape your worldview, or even the general lessons learned from mistakes you made years ago. This provides your social circle with the substance they crave without surrendering a single private digit. By withholding specific account balances, precise salary figures, exact asset valuations, or any detail that would allow an outsider to estimate your net worth, you satisfy curiosity without compromising your security. You effectively prevent your personal existence from being treated like a public financial disclosure document, maintaining a thoughtful presence while your most vital data remain shielded. When these 13 moves are integrated into a single cohesive system, a definitive architecture of quiet wealth emerges. This framework relies on the synergy of 5 pillars: privacy, automation, consistency, restraint, and time. Privacy acts as a firewall against external social leverage. Automation serves as a mechanical bypass for human decision fatigue and weakness. Consistency provides the friction-free environment necessary for compounding to accelerate. Restraint ensures that your future is not cannibalized by the expansion of current fixed costs. Finally, time acts as the ultimate multiplier. The most potent form of wealth is the one that remains unseen. It is a force that requires no validation from an audience and makes no announcements. It is built in such profound silence that the world has nothing to say about it, which is precisely where its power resides. This invisible accumulation is not born of suspicion, but of a deep desire for absolute freedom. It allows you to make life-altering decisions without the distraction of an audience, providing the margin and options required for a truly peaceful existence. As a necessary concluding note, I am not a financial advisor. The information presented throughout these 13 moves is intended for educational purposes only. The ultimate results of any wealth-building strategy are entirely dependent upon your own individual decisions, actions, and the specific circumstances of your economic environment.